Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. Today on the podcast, we'll be talking business, we'll be talking marketing, and we'll be talking tech as usual with a guest. Our guest on the show today is Ebony Vaz. Ebony is the founder and CEO of Above Promotions, a marketing technology and public relations company operating out of Florida. She's also the author of a book, Because You Are Small: Effective Marketing Strategies for Immediate Implementation. And, one of the things I love on this show is actionable tips. So we'll talk about those tips for immediate implementation. So, welcome to the show, Ebony.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
All right. So, tell us a bit about you and what you do.
As mentioned, my name is Ebony Vaz. I'm the CEO of Promotions, and we are a global company. Our team is distributed between four different countries. And so we focus a lot on helping people to tell their stories and being able to pivot when they need to, try different methods for telling their stories after they've evaluated. So we use a lot of data science to evaluate the effectiveness of campaigns. We utilize a lot of consumer science when we're building the storytelling. And then we also use different technologies to deliver that. So for our company, when we focus on marketing, we're looking to ensure that companies have a way to grow and they can stand out in the industry. There are thousands upon thousands of businesses that you're competing with on a regular basis. So we just want to make sure that we can access and help you to access that population for your target audience.
Interesting. So while doing the research, I read that you have an engineering background, and that sounded interesting because
Hmm.
I too have an engineering background. So can you tell us a bit of how you went
Yeah.
from that into marketing?
Yeah. My bachelor's is in industrial engineering.
Hmm.
And a lot of the work that I was doing was so I used to work in partly in environmental health and safety. And so I would do workplace analysis, ergonomic reviews, et cetera, ensuring that office spaces, work environments were safe for people. A lot of the research that I did when I was in college for the government, I worked on two different projects. One was on human factors for passport information security and the ability for people to be able to, well, the government to be able to determine who would do better in memorizing 16 character passwords. So the other research that I did was in virtual reality. And so that was and actually helping the government to ascertain, and some, uh, I'm gonna date myself, but this was over 20 years ago, where the government was trying to ascertain, can they teach pilots how to fly the planes without taking them up in the air? So we would have students come in about the age of what these pilots would be, and in our research lab, and we have them put on these really huge VR helmets. So think whatever bicycle helmet you've seen or have, think that bicycle helmet and like 15 pounds of cords hanging off the back
Wow.
of it. Yeah, with these big goggles over their face. And so it was always a little joke between us running these the research as to how many people were going to lose their cookies, just because the virtual environment was just so bad back in the day. And I mean, some people are still very sensitive to it. So, nonetheless, I went from doing consulting work with people for like Seminole County, Florida, and some other organizations. And I decided that, and after I'd started the master's program last summer, that at the end of the summer, I was just going to come back to Tampa, which is where I was at school at UCF in Orlando. And then I decided I would just go and enroll in this university here locally. But before I could do that, 9/11 hit. And
Wow.
so that made a big difference in the path. And I tell people it was definitely a moment where I decided, like, what do I want to do? And I knew that I wanted to help people to, like, reach their goals and, make the connections that they needed so that they could be successful. And I was trying to figure out how to, like, meld the two together. So it took me many years as a side hustle to understand, like, how technology and marketing work together. So before people we were even saying martech, that's just something that we were working on with my company. And so fast forward to now, everybody's trying to and sees the value of using technology to tell stories and to measure and stuff like that. So we're always looking at what's next and what could be helpful for companies on the next end of it. And also for us now, because of my password information security background, we utilize that to help customers when they are setting up their marketing tech stack, being able to
Mm,
make sure they're picking up, selecting software that has data privacy and security compliance in mind. And that's helpful for us too in teaching people how to communicate internally what to do when there's an incident response that happens. So our company has definitely evolved, but my background goes back a couple of decades and some government research at the University of Central Florida.
interesting, really interesting story. So when you talk about martech, that's marketing technology, can you just explain it to us with maybe like examples of what this includes and what this does for a typical business?
Mhm. Yeah. So you just think of any technology that you may put into place that allows you to communicate your story to your target audience. Consider that a marketing technology tool.
Hmm.
So, our social media platforms are that, the platforms that you use to schedule your social media platforms, even in just doing, if marketing your business includes your business having a podcast, then your podcast tools become a part of your marketing tech
Hmm.
stack. So when we take a marketing tech stack, we are looking at different technologies that we're putting together to help you to accomplish your goal of reaching your audience. And then on the other side is the technology that you've made available for your audience to reach you. So oftentimes people think of it going out one way, but it really needs to be two ways. And
Tools.
that's why you see this rise of the chatbots that are happening, because we realize that it's very hard to have to pay for customer service 24/7. And so we know that websites, I always tell my clients that websites are your next, they are your employee because they work for
Hmm.
you 24/7. And so having that chatbot is very helpful because that's another tool that makes it easy for the communication to come back to you. So you want to make sure it's two way and never one way whenever you're trying to engage with your audience.
Interesting. So, how did you identify the need for the services above promotions offers in the markets?
hmm So for us, you know, it's kind of twofold. One, it's we're looking at what's ahead and what's next. And
Hmm.
so we're always staying engaged with the tech community, always staying engaged with different startups and the SaaS community for software and tools. So we're always taking a look at what's ahead and what people are doing. And then we also think about, like, what are the needs in which people who are either marketers themselves or business owners, that the needs that they're trying to solve for. And then that's when we start to develop our services around there. So while we are like a full marketing agency, we do have like certain things that are specialty for us. And we consider locating your target audience a specialty for us. So we can create some branding, but ultimately what we're trying to get you to is making the right decisions on when to deploy that branding, like how it should look, and then how to measure the effectiveness of it. And so for us, being able to decide like what services we're going to offer is we're looking ahead, but then we're also looking at what the current needs are.
Hmm. You just mentioned one thing which just caught my attention, where you said locating your audience is a specialty for you, and that saying that a lot of times, because a lot of times we start our business and we don't really know the best market or the best people to be speaking to concerning what we have to offer. So, can you just give maybe one or two tips on how a typical business can know the right audience?
Mhm. Sure. And if any of your audience people want to, we're happy to share in customer avatar profile template that they can use. So basically, one tip is you have to measure what you're doing, and you can't measure without really knowing who you're talking to,
Hmm.
right? So as you set your target audience, you need to know exactly who they are. Don't say my audience, i, I can sell to anybody from the ages of 18 to 65, because that's not your audience. And quite frankly, you don't want everybody from 18 to 65, because we talk about the customer profile avatar, but we talk also about the non-customer, the anti-customer
Hmm.
profile avatar, that person who you do not want to be calling you and wasting and sucking your company's resources. Because that's usually what happens when you end up attracting people who can appreciate the services that you offer. They want to try to negotiate with you on your pricing. Then
Hmm.
more than likely you started to tap into the wrong person. So when we build out that profile, we're looking at an age. So I might say, I want to talk. My profile avatar is Marcus. He's 24 years old. He lives in the hills. He makes close to $1 million a year. He has a 5 bedroom home. He's married. He has kids. He doesn't like to purchase cheap products. He buys quality over quantity. He buys online. He likes to volunteer his time to help kids to code. He has an electric vehicle. He
Hmm.
commutes 1.5 hours. So we're talking like that level of detail. And people think, man, that's excessive. How am I supposed to know that? You need to know these things because you need to know how you fit into the lifestyle of that person. And that's what's going to make it easier for them to buy from you, you fitting into their lifestyle, not you trying to get them to fit into your uh, ecosystem. That's when you're at that level, you're Apple, right? Apple really doesn't care about how you're living. They'll create a product and say, you need to come into our ecosystem. And you buy that one product, and then they get you, and you buy others and others. Unless you're an Apple, you can't move in that manner. You actually have to operate in the manner of fitting into their lifestyle. So that's why it's important to know who that target audience is. And then it allows you to draft and create the stories that shares and that will resonate with that person when you know exactly who that is, and the ability to be able to go back and measure the effectiveness of it. I'm not getting the traction that I want on my website. I'm not getting responses to my ads. All right, is this the person I should be targeting, or am I even looking at what it's like to be in Marcus's life and how I can fit into his life?
Hmm. Interesting. So with that, I can now understand with that level of granular um, detail on the
Mm-hmm.
audience avatar, yeah, it's now makes a lot of sense. And when you say you help people tell their stories, that now comes together because when you know the person, you can know the person up to that level. At least you can always craft the
Mm-hmm.
stories that would resonate with
Yes.
that person. So,
Mm-hmm.
how would you say business owners can get started telling their stories? Because a lot of times I see, and it's common, it's the usual this thing. A lot of business owners come online, and what they do is just they just try to sell, 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 and do nothing. But now you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about selling stories, which is really effective. So how would you say business owners can get started telling their stories rather than just selling?
Mm-hmm. So you want to be able to, in order to tell the story, you have to understand a couple of things. And I tell people, are you a vitamin, or are you prescription?
Hmm.
So prescription is usually a doctor has said your body needs this to function properly. If you don't do it, you're probably going to have some issue, right? Then a vitamin is something that you can still have issues if you don't get it, but typically the vitamin, you could probably still operate without it. So, what is your business? Is your business a vitamin, like a nice to have, or is it a must have? So, when you think about how your business flows into one of those two character categories, then you can start to decide, all right, now I understand that I have a nice to have. So, what are the emotional insights? What are the physical insights? What, that we can play on in order to understand like this is a nice to have. So, there's just some things that are, we talk about a nice to have. Like, I have these curtains here, and they are actually blackout curtains. That is a nice to have. But essentially, if I just had something up just to keep people from looking in my window, I'm good, right? So now that I know like I have a nice to have or a must have, I know how I can craft my story and say, this is nice. Like we can help you sleep better. We can help you, you want to be able to get into their environment and what they're wanting from you and how you can solve for that. So that's why it's important every single time, because I have a couple of organizations that pay us to come in and do training, but I always start off my presentation with knowing who your target audience is,
Mm,
and then as you know that, you can start to craft your story. And then crafting that story, it becomes important for you in identifying before you craft the story, are you a nice have, a must have? And then after that, it's like, okay, now how can I fit into their life to make their life easier? And how can I ensure that my company is set up and I can say to them that the way my company is set up and how you will interact with my company, it will make your life even easier. And
mm,
so that becomes a problem. Like some people who are just starting their company, they may say, let's say they're selling a product, and they tell the person, if you want to get this product, send me money electronically, and then I'll meet you at this place and all that. Those are extra steps.
yeah.
So that way, if you're supposedly targeting busy professionals, a busy professional does not want to have to send you some money via some type of electrical format and then have to arrange with you they want that to happen automatically. So this is why you have to like know and then be able to share with people like, yeah, I can be easy for you. I can make your
Mm,
life easy for you.
and that's what Apple does too, like you said earlier.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. So for companies new to marketing technology, what are some quick and easy wins that they can implement to for a start to get started?
Yeah. So, so if a company is just starting, then there's probably going to be a limitation on resources, financial resources. So I would say use if your audience is utilizing, because you know who your audience is, if your audience is utilizing any of Meta's products, whether it's Threads or Instagram or Facebook, you want to actually be able to utilize like the scheduling feature to be able to set all of your storytelling, all of your posts and social media all at once. We actually help people with setting up their brand guide and content calendar for an entire year. So we're not caught too far off guard with what's coming up. So if it's National Chocolate Chip Day, we know that already. We have
Mm,
that in the calendar. We set that time frame. So as we set those uh, the content up, so that way we can make sure that we are able to present content that resonates with the audience. You need to schedule that out as well. We internally for all of our clients, before the month starts, all of their social media posts are already in a queue.
well,
Now, because we have a lot of clients, we use Social Pilot, and that allows us to schedule hundreds of posts every month. Now, if you don't have the budget to afford like a third party app, then utilize Metas. and their ability to schedule out, and you can see. Now, another thing is that people are like, I need help with coming up with ideas. I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit with ChatGPT to make myself dangerous, but I still need to know what I need to say. Well, Meta has the ability, as well as Twitter, they already know the data and insights of their audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually have calendars and campaign idea generators that you can use in their platform. And then that will help you generate your idea that you may turn around and put into a chat GPT or Claude AI or something like that to help you generate the content for it. So when I look at someone who is just starting, I'm thinking about those low cost type of things that anyone can do. But at the same time, someone just starting, and if they're B2B, there might be other platforms that you might need to take a look at to help you access the contact information for those people who are online trying to market their business services, their business products from business to business. And so there are platforms that provide you with the tech, the phone number, the email address. You can run sequences through those platforms. That's something else that I would say that if you're starting off and you're doing B2B, invest in like those types of platforms and apps. But essentially, at the end of the day, if I had to say one app to put money in, I would put it in a CRM,
Mm-hmm.
because a CRM, the customer relationship manager tool, where it's like your customer database, that database is going to give you information that you're just not going to believe. You'll be able to see how long it took you to convert a client. You'll be able to see like what emails they've opened that resonates with them. You'll be able to time out when it's time to contact them again about some additional services because they ordered from you in January, and now by September they probably it's time to re-up, or you can upsell them on something else. All that can be accomplished through a CRM. So I think if I had to tell people there's only one tool that they could do, then I would say use the CRM.
Mm. The CRM is always a really popular option here when I ask the question, and it's surprising not so many people implement that in their businesses. It's really surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize the value in it. And I think also that people need to understand that you can actually just get a lot of data.
Mm.
People are always like, how do I know if my customer is this? You already have a lot of data yourself that you've obtained from your customers. So you can make a lot of business decisions based off of that. When is it time for us to come up with a new product? You can go to your CRM and see when was the last time I purchased something from you. Maybe this product is working and it's not. And you go to your CRM and see nobody's ever purchased this product. Or you have this download and nobody's ever done anything after they've done the download. No, maybe the download isn't the one thing that's going to help you convert. So you can make a lot of decisions for your business quarter by quarter, annually, just for your CRM.
All right. So, where do you see the biggest opportunities right now for using tech to enhance business marketing efforts?
hmm So, I have these conversations often, and particularly around AI. And I think that some people are using it on one level, such as help me rewrite something,
Mm.
help me come up with some ideas. But then there's this other level to it where, things like you need to generate tables, you need to generate training documents, you need to kick off certain activities that can happen with you on vacation or not on vacation. And I think that that is the biggest opportunity is automation. So we look at AI, but AI that does not is not tied to automation is still not fully being utilized.
Mm,
So I think the biggest opportunity is for you to look at how AI fits in with automation. Um, and then ensuring that whatever automation that you do, that you have a way of knowing when it fails, and you have a way of being able to cipher and funnel people into different directions. And so, yeah, automation, you don't want to just automate emails to your entire population, because you probably have different customers and the customer profiles. So you
yeah,
want to be able to segment that. And I think that people are looking at AI very in a shallow manner, as to where AI, the possibilities of being able to automate, being able to create databases, internal search engines for your company. I think that's the next level that people could see as a big opportunity for their business.
interesting. All right. So earlier in the show, you talked about having a distributed team, with your team being across different continents. And I know since the pandemic, it has been really popular and yeah, popular among companies to use remote work or hybrid work for their staff. But in the last few months, I've seen a lot of talk from different people saying they
Mm.
want their people back in the offices, saying that remote work isn't productive and all that. So, why do you think this
Mhm.
is?
So I feel like there's levels to this, and I don't want to. I have to think about. I have to think about how I say this, because I know once this finishes, I'm going to share this with my circle, and I would hate for some of those people who I'm thinking about to hear this and be like, "She's talking about me." But I do feel like it's a couple of things. It's one, misinformation.
Mm,
So I have found that I well, so for me, I've always had remote. That was it. For, having the ability to, as I was growing, to have an office space that could house multiple people. Real estate here is not cheap.
mm,
And so that was one of the functions of it. And even our people that are here in the same city with me, they work from home. We might go into our co-working space like a couple of times a month, or when we have someone coming up to meet, or we're doing workshops or something like that. So we've always been in this remote environment type of thing. I do think that some people of a certain generation, are used to having people around them. And they think that if they can't see the people, then people aren't doing the work. And I think there's other ways to measure the effectiveness of your employee. I think there's other ways to measure the uh, ability to be able to meet milestones. And I think that certain people are just used to seeing others in a certain space. And so when I think back to my corporate days, people were sitting in an office for 40 hours a week. And just because you saw the top of their head over a cubicle did not mean that person was not playing solitaire, that they weren't playing Candy Crush, that they weren't, I mean, these things were still going on inside your building. Now, I get it. Some people have built out and have created these beautiful office spaces, and now they want to see people use it. I get that. They're already paying the lease every month, but in order to, I think at this point, in order to allow people to feel like they can have a life and contribute towards a common goal that a company lays out, you've got to be more flexible.
mm,
I don't think that anybody wants to feel like they are tied to their desk anymore. I don't think that you're going to get, I don't think that people are going to give you more levels of creativity just because they're sitting in a room. And in fact, there are people way smarter than me that do psychology, and they talk about the fact that there's some people that if you they have great ideas, but if you put them in the same room with other people, because they're not an extrovert, they're not going to bubble up those ideas. So there's so much more to just putting people into your beautiful building that you have created. I don't think that it's business the way business was done 10 years ago means that it is where you need to do the way you need to do business today.
Interesting. And I actually agree with you because I started working remotely back in 2011, so it's basically what I've really been used to. Because back then I used to work with designers from Pakistan, different places, and I found the internet wasn't as good as now, the technology wasn't as good as now, but we found a way, found a way around it. So
You found a way.
yeah, and now it's a lot
Yeah.
easier. So it actually confuses me when I see people say that, and you're really right with the points you brought up about that, so because a lot of people are just used to it, and one thing we are resistant to as humans is change. That's one of the biggest things we are resistant.
Yeah. And I do think that there are some things you can't get around, like for us here locally, not having anybody else that can attend events locally for us in the community could be a challenge if we didn't have
Mhm.
someone on the ground. But that still doesn't mean that they can't do the work from the comfort of their home, or if they are, uh, decided to do a nomad for like be a nomad for like 2 months in some other country and put in the work. That's it's still possible. I think that there's some management training that maybe some of these CEOs and some of these C-suite people need to have. I feel like if you're engaging with your team members, if you're giving them a chance to be successful and you are staying in contact with them and keeping up with their work, these are the same things you would be doing if they were in your office. Just because they walk through the door does not mean that they're being completely productive. So I think there's a lot to learn. Um, but I can see why there's some level of concern, but hmm, I don't, people, yeah, we took some of those stories of people not wearing clothes or, being on Zoom on their toilets. We took it and ran with it to make it seem like everybody's
Doing
having a
it.
meeting in their bathroom. Right. And that's not the case. You have a dress code in your office, have a dress code for your meeting. So I don't quite agree, and I just let some colleagues that are CEOs of the company have their say, and I just let them say what they got to say because who am I? I don't think I'm going to convince you. If
True,
you can't listen to your own team members that you pay, you're not going to listen to me.
true, true. That's really true. So let's talk about your book, Because You Were Small. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote that book quite a while ago, and ironically, I still get residual checks from that book, come from the publisher. Essentially, the book was meant to help. So, as an agency, when you grow, you have goals, you have things that you have to do. We can't take on every small business, every startup, because a startup
True.
typically doesn't have like the funding to bring in our team. But with that said, I wanted to give people a resource that they could use. And so that's why I created the book. And the book goes through and talks about just the simple things like having an actual professional phone line. Like,
Hmm.
even if you have to go on Google Voice and get a phone number, please get one. It's you can't start your business and tell people you're going to charge like $200 an hour, but when they call you they're getting your personal cell phone, and like you're like in the car and you recorded it. That's just a certain thing that just has to match up, and that doesn't match. Things like doing actually creating your website. Like, I don't care if it's a one page website, but create the website, and how, platforms like Wix or Shopify or things like that, they make it easy for you who are not completely code understanding person. Like, you don't understand tech, but I know I got to get this done, and utilizing platforms that exist to help you navigate until you can afford to have someone come alongside of you. And so that's what really what the book is talking
Hmm.
about, getting yourself set up, and how that affects how people treat you, and you can't present a solution on the lid of a garbage can and expect somebody to pay you a lot of money for it.
True.
And that's what how when you come and cut too many corners with your marketing, that's how it comes across. So you want to make sure that you're matching up with what you're trying to sell.
Hmm, interesting. So, you've had a bit of experience running above promotions. You've come a long way from when you wrote your book, and
Hmm.
a little.
So that's another way of saying I'm old.
Sounds like that.
Okay, you're telling me I'm old. No, no, I like how you said that. I'm making a mental note, and so I can say that too next time I'm with somebody. So you have a bit of experience. You have a bit of experience in this area. I'm gonna write that down. Peter told me.
That you have a bit of experience. Hmm. All right. So if you meet your younger self today, starting above
Mhm.
promotions, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh my gosh. So I think that it took me a very long time to learn how to be a owner of a business, to learn how to be a CEO. And so sometimes, and I feel kind of guilty to this because of my participation in the startup community. But we tell people to just start their business and then build everything along the way. And I think sometimes that's a disjustice.
Hmm.
I think we don't spend enough time talking to people about having a true business plan and setting up some strategic goals. So I think what happened is that people saw business plans as these 100-page documents. And so we decided to throw the whole thing out. And that was a disservice. I don't care if it's 10 pages. You need to have something, because when you go through the process of setting your business plan, it allows you to set, like, who is my audience?
Hmm.
What are the goals that I want to see? And um, when you're not doing that business plan, I think that's where we mess up. There's certain financial things you need to understand. We want to skip, usually as business owners, we tend to be creative people. Even if we're not in a creative business, we
True.
tend to be creative people just by being an entrepreneur. And that means we don't like to do anything with numbers. We want to skip analyzing and thinking about finances, but we don't realize that we need to set our goals, we need to set our key performance indicators, our KPIs in advance, and we can't do that if we don't sit and stop and take time to do that. And I think that for me, I would say I didn't spend enough time understanding how to create strategic goals and measure them for my company.
Hmm.
So that way I can set my business development, I can set any products that we create around that. And it took me a long time to come to that. And I think that that was probably the biggest lesson that I would tell right my younger self. But I'm a strong believer of I rather learn my lesson on this level than on the next.
True.
So there's lessons that I've learned, and those lessons have been for deals that were smaller. But guess what? When those bigger deals came, I took those lessons from those smaller deals and I applied them to the bigger deals, and
Hmm.
I saved the company like thousands of dollars. So I don't think that mistakes are horrible. I don't think that there are things that will trip you up from being successful. You got to close your business because you made a mistake. If you think that, then entrepreneurship is not for you.
Definitely.
But I do think that there's lessons you can learn and you can apply to the next level, and those are things that I would much rather do. Okay, I messed up. I'm gonna take it on the chin, but I bet that next customer, I bet that next client, I'm not making that same mistake. No, no. Mm-mm.
Interesting. So it's better making the mistakes at this level than at the next level. Interesting. So, for our listeners now, other business owners, what's the number one lesson around marketing technology, storytelling, and growth that you want them to live with? You want them to remember?
So, ooh, that's a tie. Okay, so I know how to do this. I know how to do this because it's my tie. I know how to do my tie. I got you. So I think the biggest thing that you can't set and forget your marketing.
Hmm.
So you can't set it up and then don't touch it, don't make adjustments, not go back and take a look at if it's performing well, not take a look and see if the tools you're using are still effective, not ensuring that the tools that you put in place are keeping up with the changes that are going on around you. So, for instance, there are data privacy laws that are changing, and they're happening in different countries. Here in the US, they're happening in different states. So, you can't just set your marketing and forget it. You can't just set your tools and forget it. You have to go back and evaluate. So that's the thing that I would say. Your marketing type tools, whatever you pick, go back and evaluate it. I like to go through once a year, and it's kind of funny because some of our long-term partners know this, and they actually have like little reminders on their calendars, and that tells you that's a good company because they know to come back to me. They know Ebony evaluates the software for her clients and her businesses at this time of year, and so they know to contact me for that. So I would say you can't set and forget your marketing. You have to
Hmm.
constantly stay on it, the tools that you're using, etc.
Interesting. So, if our listeners want to reach out to you, or they want to learn more from you, or they want to connect, or they want to work with you, how can they reach you?
Yeah. So our website, abovepromotions.com, they can go there and fill out the contact form if they're looking for to engage us with services. And I'm truly a person that believes in networking, and I really like being able to connect with people and connect people to other people. So I would say I'm a huge LinkedIn user. So if you want to just connect with me, keep up with what's going on, see what might be happening in the industry that I might share with my audience on LinkedIn, definitely find me on LinkedIn under Ebony Vaz.
Mhm. That's all right. So, your LinkedIn and your website, abovepromotions.com, will be linked in the show notes once this goes live. It goes live. So, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Your Business podcast today, for sharing with us on marketing technology, storytelling, and your story too. Very interesting. Really, really interesting.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm glad. And then, like I said, I got my little note there for you
you're
as
not
well, Peter.
you're
So
not
this
going to
has been,
forget.
I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to forget. So thank you so much. I really, truly appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. And for the listeners, thank you for being with us on this episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. I'm sure you've picked up at least 3 or 4 things you can implement next week in your business. So make sure you implement them. And by the next time we have the next episode, I'm sure you should have results to share. So thank you, everyone, for being with us on this episode of the Tech Your Business podcast. And bye for now.